I welcome everybody to the annual meeting of shareholders of Olympus Critical Minerals Inc., the inaugural meeting of the company to be held in Australia. All of them have been held in Toronto, previously, which is, while it's been good for our Canadian shareholders, it's been no good for our Australian shareholders. So good to be here. My name is John Seaton. I'm the Chief Executive of the company, and I will act as the Chairman of the meeting today. Jeffrey Clam to my right is our General Counsel, and he's going to act as the Secretary of the meeting, and we have outside Computershare Investor Services who are acting as the scrutineer. I'm informed that we do have a quorum present, so I will now call the meeting to order. In due course, I will introduce Charles Barclay, David Seaton, and Ron Murphy for the meeting. Office in Darman, and if everything goes well, they should be able to hear us and also to speak to us and ask questions. Now, the way we're going to run the meeting today is we'll run the formal business first, get that out of the way, and then I will give a presentation on the company's activities. And I'll also, from time to time, bring in the guys from Vietnam to expand anything that I'd like to say. And then after that presentation, there will be the opportunity for people to ask questions of both me and our friends from Vietnam. You may need to forgive me that if this meeting becomes a little bit formal and legalistic. The North American market is very anal on that respect. They run things a little stricter in terms of meetings. In fact, generally in North America, you have the AGM script, which has been vetted by the lawyers first, and the chairman of the meeting is never really allowed to stray from what's been vetted by the lawyers. But I've told Jeff that's not the way it's done over here, so while I'll try to make it as normal as possible, it may sometimes appear a little bit more formal and legalistic. So first of all is the notice of meeting, and I have a statutory declaration regarding the mailing of the notice of meeting, but I would ask the meeting for a motion dispensing with a reading of that notice. Do I have a mover for that? Thank you, Jane. And a seconder? Thank you, Les. Is there any discussion about that motion? It's purely a procedural one. There being none, I'll put the motion to the meeting. All in favour, please raise your hands. And against, I declare the motion carried unanimously. The second thing is the reading of the minutes of the meeting. There is a copy of the minutes up at the top of the table, and that is available for inspection. Does anybody at the meeting want to come up and read those minutes? No. Well, in that case, I'll ask for a motion that the minutes of the last meeting of shareholders of the company held on June the 6th, 2011 be taken as read and approved in such form. I have a mover for that, please. Jane, and seconder. Les, is there any discussion on the motion? There being no discussion, I put the motion to the meeting. All in favour, please raise your right hand or left hand. And against? There being none against, I declare the motion carried unanimously. The next item of business is the financial statements for 2011. The audited financial statements of the company and the auditor's report as at and for the fiscal year ended December 31, 2011, with comparative figures relating to the previous fiscal period ended December 31, 2010 have been mailed to shareholders and are also presented to this meeting. I ask for a motion to dispense with the reading of those financial statements. Will that keep us here all afternoon? Do I have a mover for that motion? Jane, thank you. And a seconder? Thank you. You don't have to leave it to them, you know. Other people can move and second the motions. Okay, is there any discussion on that motion? There being no discussion, I'll put the motion to the meeting. All in favour, please raise your hands. And against, none. I declare the motion carried unanimously. Just before we leave that, does anybody want a a brief explanation of the financial statements. But we do have the CFO, Jane Bell, with us, and she's happy to, anybody wants to just say a brief statement. No? Well, we'll move on to the next item, which is the election of directors. Kevin Tomlinson, who is retiring by rotation, has made himself available for re-election. He is the only one of the company's 4 directors who is being put forward to the meeting today, as the other directors' terms are still in effect. The meeting is, however, now open for other nominations, and I must add that the person who is being nominated must have consented to being nominated as a candidate for the board. Are there any nominations from the floor?
I nominate Kevin Tomlinson to be appointed as director with a 3-year term.
Thank you, Jane. Is there a seconder for that nomination? Silence. Are there any other nominations? There being no nominations, I declare the nominations closed and ask for a motion that Kevin Tomlinson be elected director of the company to hold office until the 3rd annual meeting following this meeting, or until his successor is elected or appointed. Jane?
I'll do that.
And a seconder, please. Is there any discussion on the motion? Oh, thank you. Well, let's put the motion to the meeting. All in favour, please raise your hands. And against? I declare Kevin Tomlinson elected as director of the company. The next item of business is an increase in fees payable to non-executive directors, so that is directors who do not hold a management position in the company. They are the 3 non-executive directors, being currently Kevin Tomlinson, John Morder, and Les Robinson, who is present with us today. The company is proposing to increase the maximum pool of money available for non-executive directors, $350,000 per year, which would represent an increase of $239,000 compared to the $111,000 being the aggregate amount of fees currently paid. $350,000 for which the company is seeking approval, maximum amount, the full amount of which is not expected to be used initially. According to ASX Listing Rule 10.17, a company requires shareholder approval to increase the total amount of director fees payable by it. So I now ask for a motion to approve the increase in total fees payable to non-executive directors to $350,000 for the purpose of ASX Listing Rule 10.17 and for all other purposes as described on page 7 of the information circular. Would someone like to move that motion? Thank you, Jane. And a seconder? Oh, Les, you're too quick. Okay, thank you. And I now call for discussion on the motion. No discussion, I'll put the motion to the meeting. All in favour, please raise your hands. And against? I declare the motion carried. They are unanimously. We now move on to the appointment and compensation of auditors. Ernst & Young LLP Chartered Accountants are proposed as auditors of the company for the following year. So I now ask for a motion that Ernst & Young LLP be appointed auditor for the ensuing year at a fee to be determined by the directors. Someone like to move that motion?
I move that.
And seconder? Great, thank you. All right, is there any discussion of this this motion? Being none, I put the motion to the meeting. All in favour, please raise your hands. And against? I declare the motion carried unanimous. The next item is approval for the issue of options to directors of the company. The company intends to grant 1,626,418 stock options exercisable for a period of 5 years to directors of the company pursuant to the company's stock option plan. Now for Australian shareholders, the stock option plan is a plan that has been approved by the TSX and previously approved by shareholders. Details of the option grants are sent out on pages 7 through 9 of the information circular. ASX Listing Rule 10.14 requires shareholder approval by ordinary resolution for an issuer by a listed company of securities to a director under an employee incentive plan. Shareholders other than directors who receive options under that plan will be asked to vote on the resolution to approve the grant of the stock options to directors identified in the information circular. So I now ask for a motion to approve the resolution in the form set out on pages 8 and 9 of the information circular. Do I have a mover for that motion, please? Les and a seconder. Thank you. Sorry, is there any discussion of that motion? There being no discussion, I put the matter to the meeting. All in favour, please raise your hands. And against? I declare the motion carried. We have another item of business relating to the issue of options granted to directors and officers. In this case, it is a ratification of a previous issue. Since the last shareholder meeting, the company has issued to directors and officers options to purchase 13,596,811 common shares, exercisable for a period of 5 years, again pursuant to the company's stock option plan. Details of the option grants are set out on pages 10 through 12 of the information circular. The ASX Listing Rule 7.4 permits the ratification of a previous issue of securities made without shareholder approval, provided the issue did not exceed 15% of the company's issued capital. The effect of such ratification is to restore or refresh an issuer's maximum discretionary power to issue further shares up to the 15% threshold without requiring further shareholder approval. Shareholders, other than those who may have received options under the plan, will be asked to vote on this resolution. And I will now ask for a motion to approve the ratification of the issue of these options for the purposes of ASX Listing Rule 7.4 and for all other purposes as described on pages 10 through 12 of the information circular. Do I have a mover for that motion? Thank you, Jane. And seconder? Thank you. Is there any discussion on the motion? There being no discussion, I put the motion to the meeting. All in favour, please raise your hands. And against? Thank you. I declare the motion carried. We've got a couple more to go, but we're nearly there. Ratification of the issue of options granted to Baroda Hills Investments Limited. And now, Jeff, when we're doing this, do we have to do it a separate ratification, or can we? We can do it as one. We can do that. Yes. So there are two more ratifications that need to be done. One are the options granted to Baroda Hills Investments Limited. That was a stock option to purchase 30,000 common shares of the company, exercisable for a period of 5 years pursuant to the company's stock option plan. And another issued to Zone Capital Partners LLC. They have stock options to purchase 350,000 common shares of the company, again exercisable for 5 years and pursuant to the company's stock option plan. Full details of those option grants have been set out in pages 12 through 14 of the company's information circular. Again, we are seeking ratification of these options pursuant to ASX Listing Rule 7.4, which, as the previous resolution, enables the shareholders meeting to refresh that issuer's maximum discretionary power to issue further shares up to the 15% threshold without requiring further shareholder approval. Again, the recipients of those stock option grants are not allowed to vote on this meeting. And I now ask for a motion to approve the ratification of the issue of both of these Zone Capital and Baroda Hills Investments Limited options for the purposes of ASX Listing Rule 7.4 and for all other purposes as described on pages 12 through 14 of the information circular. Do I have a mover for that motion, please? Thank you, Jane. And seconder? Thank you. Is there any discussion on those motions? No discussion. I now put the motion to the meeting. All in favour, please raise your right hand. Raise your hand. And against? I declare the motion carried unanimously. Do any of the shareholders present have any other items of business that they may wish to be brought before the meeting? No? Well, I happily, that brings us the formal business of the meeting to a conclusion. So I now close the meeting and will proceed with a presentation about the company's activities. Thank you all for attending, and we'll move over to the presentation. But before we do, can we hear the guys in Vietnam now?
Can you hear Charlie?
Can you hear us, John?
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear us? Okay, well, we'll stay muted until you ask us to speak.
Okay.
Perhaps you could tell us who's in the room, about how many people are in the room.
Yep, we're ready to go then.
We have in the room, what have we got here? 2, 4, 6, 8, about a dozen people in the room. We've had a number of shareholders who've made the trek to the hotel for this AGM, so it's good to see them here in person.
Good.
Okay, so just introducing to the meeting the people we have there. On the left of the table is Charles Barclay. He was the former Chief Operating Officer of the company. He's now moved up into the corporate side of the company and is the Chief Strategy Officer. In the middle is my brother David Seaton. David is the Executive Chairman of the company, and along with me and another of my brothers is co-founder of the company. And on the right is Rod Murfitt, who is the Chief Geologist of the company. Rod is a very experienced geologist and is the man who is responsible for essentially the discovery of Phuoc Som and the development of the Bong Mu gold field into a producing mine as our first operating property in Vietnam. So if there are questions particularly of a technical nature, Charlie in regard to production, and Rod in relation to geology will be able to give you chapter and verse. Okay, well look, let's start with the company as to what we are. We are a Southeast Asian focused gold producer pursuing a multi-mine, multi-country diversification strategy. At the moment we have the first leg of that strategy in place, and that we have 2 mines, both in Vietnam. But with the development of our property in Malaysia and the new exploration property in the Philippines, we are putting into effect the other leg of our strategy, which is a country diversification strategy as well. We believe that of most of our peers in the Asian region, we're reasonably unique in our footprint across the Southeast Asian region. And we also believe that the quality of the properties in our portfolio are such that we don't need to go out and acquire additional companies or additional properties to ensure we can grow to mid-cap status and beyond. We believe the companies in our portfolio are of a quality and size that will give us all the growth we need in the coming few years. Let me, however, first introduce the company's board of directors. You can see my brother David Seaton sitting in the middle of the room, in the middle of the table there. David has been involved in the mining industry for the last 30 years, originally learning the trade with the Magnet Group out of Perth, and subsequently having made discoveries of the Overtime deposit in Ghana, and of course our current activities in Vietnam through the development and discovery of the Phuoc Som Bong Mu properties. Also on the board, there's Robinson, who's present here. Les is the chair of the governance committee on the board of directors. Les has had a long experience in the investment banking industry, from which he has retired and spends his days reading what's happening in the rest of the world and forming an opinion on what's happening in the world economy and what's going to happen to the price of gold. So Les is our oracle when it comes to the price of gold. Hit him up, he'll give you chapter and verse. Also on the board of directors, John Morder, who is the chair of the audit committee. John was until last year, when he retired, CFO of Alamos Gold, which is a very profitable producer in the States. And certainly John was a very valuable board member. Kevin Tomlinson has just joined the board. He had been appointed as a casual appointment prior to this meeting when he was formally elected by the meeting. Kevin is the deputy chair and the lead independent director. Lead independent director is something that we don't see over here in Australia, but it's a recognised thing in the North American market. Essentially, the independent board is required to convene as a separate body from the general board. Kevin effectively acts as chairman of the independent board. Kevin is a geologist. He has a long history in the industry. He started off working as a geo. He ended up being head of research at Hartley's in Perth. He then moved over back to Canada because he is a Canadian national, where he worked in the Canadian broking industry, eventually rising to the position of managing partner of Stifels, which is an international broking firm now headquartered in London. Kevin is now retired from that position. He still lives in London and holds positions on 4 boards. So Kevin is also a very, very good director. Very impressed with our board. It's one of the it's a very hard-working and hard-working board, one that actually adds value, which is sadly not always the case. Looking at senior management, I'm standing in front of you. I'm a lawyer by profession. I happily admit that I wasn't a very good lawyer, but I have been in the resources industry for a long time, since I think the first foray was in 1987. Along the way, I've held directorships on a number of listed companies. Most recently, I was chairman of Summit Resources, that was taken over by Paladin and the uranium firm. And obviously, I've been working on developing these properties in Vietnam for the last 20-odd years. Klaus Leiters, our COO, is a German national who recently replaced Charlie as the COO. Klaus comes to us from most recently the Kumtor project in Kyrgyzstan. Klaus is both a mechanical engineer and a mining engineer. And Charlie Barclay, who you see at the left-hand side of the table as we're looking at it now, is an English national. He was learned his trade throughout the South African mining industry, then in the Pacific with Emperor Mines, and worked with us since 2006, and was really responsible for expanding production at Bong Mu and also for the successful development, design and construction and commissioning of the Phuoc Son plant in Vietnam. Sitting at the table to your right there, Rob Murfitt, the exploration manager. As I think I said beforehand, Rob's had a long association with us. He's a very experienced geologist and did all the hard work that brought Bong Mu and Phuoc Son into production, and is now helping oversee the work at Bao and in the Philippines. You don't see him here. Graham Fulton is the project engineer in charge of the Bao project, a Scottish national, so we really are a bit of a League of Nations in the company. He is currently overseeing the feasibility study in Bao, and later on in the year we hope to have some from that for you. I'll also point out to you Eric Du Bois, who's our chief metallurgist, and another metallurgist, Noel Magia, who's our group plant manager, two very well qualified metallurgists. Eric is leading all the metallurgical investigations into the Bao ore. He's a very highly qualified man and a former in charge of Inco's cyanide destruction business, a process that he was one of the co-inventors of. So a number of very highly skilled professionals in the company. In terms of the share structure, we currently have approximately 380 million shares on issue. And in terms of notes, has converted 84 million convertible notes. And the way I like to consider it is that we have essentially 490 million shares if you consider the convertible notes as converted. And that really gives us a very low market capitalisation, certainly not befitting a company which has properties the size and quality of ours and cash that we have. We're now in a very fortunate position of cash flow out of Vietnam, essentially paying for our other activities, so we don't have the need to go back to the market for the activities that we have planned. Touching briefly on the convertible notes, they're split into three, which were essentially issued in two tranches. The 8% notes split between US dollar denominated and Canadian dollars denominated, and the 9% notes which are denominated in Canadian dollars. They come to maturity in the years 2014 and 2015, never weighted conversion price of 48 cents, something which I believe that we should go through this year. In terms of our gold loan, we have remaining approximately 10,400 ounces to deliver, but by this time next year, or by June of next year, that loan will have been repaid in full. In terms of what we're doing with the money and where we're getting it from, last year our cash costs, including royalty, were $835 an ounce, and this year they're $765 an ounce. Please bear in mind that all of our costs are in US dollars, and we don't have a carbon tax to pay in Vietnam, so we have that benefit. The other thing too is without a strengthening Australian dollar, which has been diminishing the effect of the increased gold price until recently, we can take full benefit of any increase in the US dollar cost of production. In terms of where we're going, what we're spending this year, we have $12 million budgeted for exploration and feasibility on our properties, the vast bulk of that going to the Bow project. Interest on our loans is $4.2 million, and repayment of principal, being the gold loan, is another $11,600. So by this time next year, our balance sheet will be looking cleaner because the gold loan will be gone, and hopefully we may even be able to have some of our convertible notes converted as well. So let's take a look at the properties. That's a region in which we operate. You can see in Vietnam, central Vietnam, the two properties, Phuoc Thong and Bong Nhu. They're located a drive of about 2.5 hours respectively from the third largest city in Vietnam called Da Nang. Now, some of you may have been on holiday in Vietnam. If you went to Hoi An or you went to Hue, chances are you probably flew into Da Nang Airport and went off to those tourist spots. So, you know, the infrastructure there in those cities is very good. We certainly don't find it a problem to attract expatriate staff because it's a much nicer environment than you may find in some of the African countries. So that is, I guess, the seat of our operations, and we have an office in Da Nang as well as an office in Hanoi and northern Vietnam. Coming down to Malaysia, on the island of Borneo, and this is the East Malaysian state there of Sarawak. The Bow Goldfield itself is situated at just a short drive away from Kuching Airport, probably about a half-hour drive from Kuching Airport. And rounding off our portfolio of properties up here in the north is in northern Luzon province of the Philippines, is the Cap Goldfield. So where are we? What do we look like? We're a company which has proven its ability to develop and produce gold from properties in Southeast Asia. We have built 2 gold mines in Vietnam, and in fact at the moment we are the only modern mines and processing plants of any description. This year we are on track for hitting our market guidance production of 65,000 ounces, and next year we are targeting increasing our production out of Vietnam to 100,000 ounces. For this year, provided the gold price doesn't stay down where it is now for the whole year, we are targeting during the calendar year an EBIT of $39 million. Now, just one thing to make, we are changing our financial year to a June financial year. Previously, we've had a calendar year financial year in common with most other North American companies. However, if you combine Australasian holiday, which closed down over Christmas and New Year, and then put on the back of that the Lunar New Year holidays, it makes getting an audit done on a calendar year-end company a lot of fun when a lot of your staff are going on holidays. So we've bowed to inevitability in changing our calendar year to the mid-year. So there will be another annual general meeting later on this year when we finish off the 6-month period to 30th of June, 31st of June. In terms of the resources we have in the company, at the moment we're sitting at around about 4 million ounces of resource, which is spread over East Malaysia, Vietnam, but not yet in the Philippines, as we haven't got a JORC or NI 43101 compliant resources yet. Bao is our flagship property, 3 million ounce property. There are very few projects in the world bigger than 3 million ounces. I think they number, Les, what's the number of it? About
I guess what was in recent years finding large deposit discoveries, largely with the gold community. The last couple of years, there's only been 1 or 2 a year coming through. So 3 million ounces in East Malaysia. That is becoming truly world-class mine. That's the key point. This is a project that the market is really focusing on. The market's in a bad state, but certainly the industry is very attentive to what we're doing. I think that's the key point for producers.
thanks, Eve. I actually think there are fewer than 50 mines in the world greater than 3 million ounces, isn't it? Yeah. And both Bao and Vietnam, we believe, are open for resource increase by increased exploration on both those properties. So they're big properties, each of them, and they have the ability to increase further as we're able to explore them more. And the Philippines is another project, I'll touch briefly on it later on, where has the real, has every chance of being another good Filipino gold copper property, and we'll be looking to drill that later in the year. And I guess we've talked about having production, we've talked about having exploration. For the exploration upside, we have growth in resources as well through the feasibility work that we're doing. Sorry, growth in production through the feasibility work we're doing in East Malaysia. So you see there on this slide, sorry, I put you wrong before, we have a global resource figure of currently around 4 million ounces with a target of taking that to 4.5 million ounces this year. And that is with the expected release of a new resource statement towards the end of the year. So you can see there that with the exception of 2009 when we brought Phuc Som mine into production and the mining activities increased a little bit ahead of our exploration crews, we have increased our global resource each year. It's the same with production, albeit starting from a very low base. We have increased our production every year since 2006 and should continue to do that this year and next year. In terms of where we might go in the future, the blue blobs represent production coming up from Bao. Now I do caution that that I've not put any figures on those because we have not finished feasibility, so I don't want to go out and talk about how many ounces we may produce, or indeed whether production will start in 2014. The way things are looking at Bao, the projects they're looking to bring into production are getting bigger, or the deposits we're looking to get in production are rapidly increasing in size, so we have yet to make a decision whether we go into production in 2014 or delay it just a little bit longer to see how much bigger it is. Let's look at Phuc Som. Charlie, do you want to say anything about Phuc Som?
Other than that's a capacity of 500 tonne a day at the moment, with the ability to increase that to 1,000 tonne a day. It's a recovers at around about 92 to 95% of the ore that goes through, and we look for a pretty long life at Phuc Som, although we cannot underpin that with resources and reserves at the moment. However, we will be increasing our reserves there towards the end of this year.
Thanks, Charlie. And Rod, if I go back to the previous slide, do you want to say anything about the prospectivity of the Phuc Som goldfield?
Yes, we've explored about 100 square kilometres in the past, and we've developed about 22 prospect areas, including as well, and 2 active operating mines. The south deposit, you can see it in red at the bottom of the slide, and the north deposit about a kilometre north of that. The mineralisations in a series of stacked shear zones, of which we've only explored 1 to date. So it's a fertile part of the world for mineralisation. There are mineralisations related to large structures that are underexplored, so it's a lot of potential for developing further ounces there.
Thanks, Rod. We'll move on now to the Bolmu gold mine, and Rod and Charlie, I might ask you to say a few words about that, and maybe Rod, if you talk first about the geology there, and we'll move on to Charlie just talking about the production there. So I'll just go on to...
Yeah, at Bolmu, we've got an exploration property covering about 30 square kilometres around the nose of the Bolmu anticline, which is currently shown on this slide. That's a west-looking slide, so on the left-hand side we've got the Nui Kem gold mine. It's an area that's been mined for centuries, firstly by the Chan civilization hundreds of years ago, secondly by the French colonial administration, and now by us. On the right-hand side, we have the Hore Kat Tran open pit project, and that's proposed for development in the coming years.
Just showing this as a plan view, you can see the new Hore proposed open pit on the northern limb of the anticline. The original Hogan open pit, which has now been exhausted at surface and has been followed underground into the new Hogan South underground mine, and the old French mine of Nui Kem, under which we have declined and put in a number of additional levels and continue to mine. And then the company's flagship property. What you're looking at there is what we call the Central Bow area. The Central Bow area is only one very small part of our overall property package there, either in granted mining certificates, mining leases, exploration licenses, or prospecting licenses, or renewals of those, or applications for those. We have over 1,400 kilometres of ground under our control. That makes this really a bit of a district play because we have most of the prospective ground on the Malaysian side of the border. The deposits which you see named in that slide are the ones which make up our current NI 43-101 JORC resource of just over 3 million ounces. Most of that resource is contained within 100 metres of surface. The work we've been doing at Taibong, Jugan Hill and Youngs Hill has shown to us that those deposits at least are open at depth and along strike. We believe that there is depth potential of the other deposits as well, and that there are prospects which are not shown there that are also highly prospective. So this property is a history of mining. We estimate that 3 million ounces have been taken out of it in the last 150 years. Add that 3 million ounces we have today in our JORC resource, and you already have a large gold field. We don't believe that the gold field stops at the 6 million of historically produced and the 3 million we have in current resource, and we're looking to expand that as we increase our exploration on the property. Ideally, we would like to see a number of these deposits reaching or exceeding 1 million ounces each, and that they would be brought into production sequentially to enable continuing growth in our production profile. The picture there is of the resource wireframe on our Jugan Hill deposit, the one that we are concentrating on as stage 1 of our production. Charlie, would you like to say something about Dugan and what the guys are looking at there?
Well, we're looking at a very large open pit, which as our team continues to drill for resources, is showing that the exploration potential is actually bigger than we thought, and that it could be a monster. The depth we've increased substantially through drilling over the past year. We're filling in the gaps. If you look at the orange arrow pointing to the left on your screen, that area is currently being filled in with drilling. So the resource is open-ended in 3 directions, east, west, and down. And the project, in terms of the feasibility, which is the basis of, we've been looking at tonnages from anything up to from 4,000 to 12,000 tons per day. But even that starts to pale when you see the size of the deposit. So interesting conundrums for the company going forward. It's a hill, very easy to mine, very easy to establish a pit, and the metallurgical test work is well underway, but looking very positive.
Okay, thanks, Charlie. So what are we doing on this for the rest of this year? We're continuing with the feasibility work, in particular the metallurgical studies, and we would look to see those metallurgical studies finished by the end of the third quarter and a decision being made on likely process. Drilling is ongoing, both to increase resources, to move ounces from the inferred category into measured or indicated, and also true exploration drilling where we look to increase the resource total. Finally, we come to the Filipino project. Now, this is a project which we had done due diligence drilling on a few years ago and had some wonderful results. Then it took us about 3 years to negotiate the joint venture agreement, and that was signed in October of last year. We are currently going through the community consultation process, and over the next quarter we look to see that signed off, and we'll perhaps be able to get drill rigs onto the property before the end of the year. Rod, do you want to talk a little bit about the Cap Capo project and why you're so excited about it?
Yes, the project's in a very productive gold field or mineralisation field, and just north of Baguio mining district, with historic production in the order of 60 million ounces of gold. It's a classic gold-copper porphyry system at depth, capped by an epithermal system. So it's got a lot of potential that remains to be tapped by step-out drilling in the next year or so.
And Rod, what were the results of your due diligence drilling that you did that got you so excited about that?
Well, the result grade mineralisation outcropping at surface, which is kind of unusual for a deposit of this type. It's got grades up to 4 grams per tonne gold and 1% copper. The drilling results suggest that the grades are increasing with depth. It's all related to an epithermal eruption vent. We know the location of that, but it has not been drilled as yet. And that is likely to be a very fertile source of mineralisation.
Okay, thanks, Rod. All right, so just summing up, where are we? We have made the step from being an explorer to a producer. We've done that now. We've proved our ability to build and operate mines in the region. We currently represent value compared to our peers, so we would anticipate a slingshot effect when the resource equities market returns, and also as the market wakes up to the value that's contained in this company. One of the most valuable assets we have within the company are people we have put together. We're a real company. I think we currently number around about 1,500 employees, including, of course, a large number of underground miners in Vietnam, but we have on team a group of experienced resource industry professionals, and that is a commodity which is in very short supply these days. We're moving on, bringing Bao into production. That production should take increase our production profile beyond 200,000 ounces per year when it does come into production, and has the legs to take us well beyond that into mid-cap status. Having said that, that's not to say that Vietnam does not have the ability to increase production. Well, it does, but we are concentrating on implementing our country risk diversification strategy in Bao first before increasing production in Vietnam. And one of the other attractions to Bao is that it does not have a royalty on gold, and the tax rates are very low. The normal tax rate there is around 26%, and we have the ability to apply for a pioneer tax status of 5% per year for the first 5 years. And so, as well as our production growth, we see upside potential in our resource profile, both coming from Bao, which we're working on at the moment, and from the Philippines. So that concludes my presentation. The floor is open for questions, both to me, to Jane on the financials, and to the guys in Vietnam on matters operational. Does anyone have any questions?
We did about 17,000 ounces from Bong Miao in 2011. Now that the open pit is exhausted, are we going to be able to at least maintain that production rate?
Charlie, do you want to answer that?
Yeah. Could I just get a clarification on the question? I only heard on.
The question was, by moving from the open pit at Ho Gan to the Ho Gan underground, are we going to maintain our production from Bong Miao this year?
I think the main thing to realise about Bong Miao is it actually is a very large gold field, and we have Nui Ken, which is underground. We have Hogan, which is going underground, but we still have the Ho Ray project, which would be an open pit for many years. So we have a number of moves to make. In terms of production, Bong Miao has got potential to expand. In terms of its current production versus production going forward with the same plant at the moment, one could reasonably expect that the grades underground will maintain a higher level than the grade of the open pit, which is averaged about 2.8 over the years. So the answer to your question is no, I don't expect a lowering of ounces, maybe a reduction in tonnage short term, but the potential is there to increase as we move forward.
Okay, does that answer the question? Yeah, essentially, by moving to the underground deposit in replacement of the open pit deposit, we're increasing grade and reducing tonnage throughput. Are there any other questions? Richard?
John, just on Kappa, what's the proposed work program for the next 12 months? I mean, you better say it hasn't advanced a great deal. Is that related? Is that through choice or through protracted negotiations?
Well, Charlie, Richard Crooks asked a question about why not started drilling yet? Is that due to choice or to the community consultation program? And then Rod, the second limb of the question is, what is the initial exploration program proposed to be?
Okay, to answer the first part, Richard, we're at the moment we're taking it very carefully. We're not going to put foreign faces up at site. It is historically a great area for mining, but not great for relationships. And we want to make sure that the relationships are right. We currently have the governor, the church, right behind us. The mines department are very much behind us, and we're currently satisfying ourselves that all the barangay are happy that we're going to be coming onto site. Just don't want to end up putting a rig up there and ending up with rocks in the road and stoppages. We want to make sure we get on and get a clean run at the drilling. And apart from that, one of the big reasons is that really our main focus is bow, and bow is consuming most of our time and energies at the moment.
And Rod, what is the initial exploration program you're proposing when we get on site this year?
The initial objective will be to determine how big it is. The current indications are that the mineralised system is something like 4 kilometres diameter. We've only drilled and sampled a very small part of that to date with excellent results. So apart from surface geochemistry and geological mapping, we will be following that with step-out drilling, aimed primarily at the epithermal vent structure and progressing to deeper levels where we expect to encounter a classic porphyry copper gold system at depth.
Thank you. Happy with that? Any other questions?